March 6, 1944. 23,000 feet above Germany, the B-17 Hell's Fury carved a silver arc through a winter sky that looked frozen solid. Vapor streamed off her wingtips, her fuselage rattling under the strain of thin air and enemy territory. In the tail compartment, Staff Sergeant Michael "Mad Mike" Donovan sat hunched behind his twin. 50s, jaw locked, eyes scanning the empty blue with a predator's patience. He wasn't watching for fighters. He was waiting for them. They appeared exactly as he expected, 12 Messerschmitt Bf-109s rising from the haze in a perfect climbing formation. They slid into position behind the bomber group like wolves assembling for a coordinated kill. Training manuals said to wait. Hold fire. Conserve ammunition. Don't provoke the attack until the enemy commits. Donovan had never cared much for rules written by men who died following them. In 4 minutes, the sky would turn into a furnace of smoke and metal. 12 enemy fighters would fall. Not a single American bomber would be hit. And the legend of Mad Mike would travel from tent to tent, briefing room to briefing room, until every gunner in the 8th Air Force knew the name of the man who refused to let the enemy dictate the fight. But Donovan's story didn't start in the tale of Hell's Fury. It began on the streets of South Boston, where hesitation got you flattened. His father hauled cargo on the docks. His older brother fought in the Golden Gloves. By 17, Mike had racked up 32 fistfights and carried the tally like a badge. He won 28, lost 4. Started too slow, he'd mutter. When the news of Pearl Harbor hit, he enlisted the next morning. The recruiters tried steering him to ground crew. He laughed in their faces. Put me where I can shoot. Gunnery school hated him. Too aggressive. Too impulsive. Too willing to risk exposure for a clean shot. But he shot fast, accurately, and instinctively. During final evaluation, he delivered a line that instructors repeated for years. Dead gunners don't shoot back. Live ones do. He graduated 3rd in his class, not because he was disciplined, but because he was fast. Faster at locating targets. Faster at reacting. Faster at deciding the exact second danger turned into opportunity. By March 1944, he found himself assigned to the 390th Bomb Group at Framlingham, England. Hell's Fury, the bomber he joined, already carried scars. Her crew flew 3 missions with barely controlled chaos in the tail. The previous gunner, Eddie Morrison, had barely survived the last sortie. When he touched down, hands shaking uncontrollably, he submitted transfer papers before the engines even cooled. That tail position's cursed, Morrison whispered. Next guy dies there. Donovan overheard him and stepped forward without hesitation. Captain James Whitmore, Hell's Fury's pilot, interviewed him personally. You know the odds? Tail gunners have the highest fatality rate in the fortress. 38% don't finish their tour. Donovan shrugged. Then I've got 62% going for me. Whitmore stared at him for a long, quiet moment before cracking a thin smile. You're insane. You'll fit right in. His first mission, March 2nd, was a baptism of fire. He shot down 1 fighter and mauled 2 more, but it wasn't the kills that made people talk. It was how he fought. He ignored the manual entirely. Fired at enemy formations before they attacked. Emptied long bursts at extreme range, 1,000 yards and beyond, just to break their rhythm. Murphy, the crew chief, counted the spent belts afterward. 1,600 rounds, he said, stunned. Out of 2,000. Donovan just shrugged. We didn't get hit. Worth it. 2 days later, he refined the method again. When a group of fighters dived in textbook formation, Donovan targeted the wingman, not the lead. The wingman exploded instantly, debris showering the leader's canopy. The rest scattered like spooked birds. That night, Donovan sat hunched over intelligence manuals, studying German fighter doctrine the way a boxer studies an opponent's footwork. He memorized their approach angles, attack patterns, weak spots. And somewhere between midnight and dawn, he wrote a plan no tail gunner had ever attempted, a plan to go offensive. German fighters attacked like a machine. 6 Bf-109s in staggered echelon, perfectly positioned to tear a bomber apart. The standard American defense was equally predictable. Hold fire, conserve ammo, wait for the kill zone. Donovan saw the flaw immediately. The defenders always reacted. The attackers always controlled the timing. So he vowed to flip the script. March 6, 1944. Target, Augsburg Aircraft Factory. Predicted fighter opposition, catastrophic. Mission briefing ended with quiet unease. Whitmore gathered his men outside the hard stand, breath fogging in the pre-dawn cold. "This one's going to be rough," he told them. "Stay sharp. Stay alive." Donovan raised his hand. "Permission to try something different, sir." Whitmore frowned. "Such as, open fire early. Hit them before they organize. Make them react to us." "That's not doctrine." Donovan leaned forward. "Sir, we've been waiting to get shot for 2 years. Maybe it's time we shoot first." Whitmore exhaled, weighed life and death in a 3-second pause, then nodded. "You get one mission. If we come back shredded, you're off the guns." "Deal." Hell's Fury lifted off at 0647. The group assembled over East Anglia, engines droning like rolling thunder. By the time they crossed the channel, the crew settled into that familiar tension between boredom and doom. At 0919, Jackson's voice cut through the intercom. "Fighters, 6 o'clock high? 12 of them." Donovan swiveled his turret. The fighters were still forming. Tight, perfect, lethal. Training said wait. Experience said wait. Instinct said otherwise. Donovan opened fire. A long, angry burst of tracers ripped into the empty sky, 2,000 yards out, long before any gunner was supposed to fire. Most rounds missed, but the effect was instant. The German formation shattered. The lead fighter peeled away. Wingmen hesitated. Their perfect choreography collapsed. "Cease fire." Whitmore barked. "You're wasting ammo." "Negative," Donovan replied, calm as a surgeon. "Watch what happens." The Germans regrouped, cautiously this time. Their decisive dive was gone, replaced by uncertainty. Donovan waited until they closed to 1,500 yards, then fired again. Another break. Another hesitation. But one fighter, steady, disciplined, pressed on. A veteran. A killer. Donovan recognized the type instantly. He let that one close. 1,200 yards. 1,900. Then he opened up, a solid curtain of fire. The fighter exploded in a violent bloom of smoke and flame. Tail gunner splashed one. Hayes shouted. Donovan didn't reply. He was already tracking the next threat. The remaining fighters tried a new tactic, splitting into multiple attack vectors. Smart. Coordinated. Aggressive. Donovan was ready. The sky erupted as the German formation split. 6 fighters diving straight down Donovan's throat at 6 o'clock, 5 more sliding in from 7. It was the kind of assault that chewed bombers in half. The kind that left gunner compartments empty and silent. But Donovan had spent nights preparing for this exact moment. "Waste guns, take the 7 o'clock attackers," he said, voice steady. 6 o'clock is mine." Sergeants Price and Johnson swung their guns toward the 5 bandit wing, while Donovan locked onto the 6 cascading toward him. He didn't divide attention, didn't play defense. He focused, owned his sector, and let the others do their jobs. The first fighter came in too clean, too confident. Donovan squeezed the triggers, and the sky flashed. The Messerschmitt erupted in midair, engine blown apart in a violent plume. Metal spun past Hell's Fury in glittering fragments. The second fighter hesitated, one heartbeat too long. Donovan shifted, fired, and tore the aircraft apart. 2 kills in 15 seconds. The rest saw the massacre and broke. 3 pulled straight up. 1 rolled off in panic. Another dove away so fast he nearly ripped his wings off. A single gunner had fractured an entire Luftwaffe attack wave. But the battle wasn't finished. 15 minutes later, the second wave arrived. 18 fighters in tight formation, sweeping in from every angle. The sky filled with the shriek of engines and white streaks of cannon fire. Every bomber in the formation braced for annihilation. Donovan didn't slow. He targeted the heart of the threat, 6 fighters streaking directly at him. He let them close. 2,000 yards. 1,500. 1,000. Then fired. The lead BF, 109 disintegrated, flipping end over end. The second flew straight into Donovan's barrage and exploded like a kicked beehive. Flames tore across the sky. Donovan just splashed 2 more. Whitmore shouted. But Mike was already reloading. The fight didn't wait. 3 fighters remained, closing fast. Cannon bursts screamed past the tail. Hell's Fury shuddered as metal peeled back and rivets snapped. But Donovan kept firing, emptying thunder straight into the center of the attack. Another German broke apart. A second spiraled down, trailing black smoke. A third peeled away in a panic climb and disappeared. And then, silence. Donovan checked his ammo. 1 belt left. 400 rounds. 10 seconds of fire. And that was when the horizon darkened. Radar calls confirmed what every man on the bomber already sensed, a full grup inbound. 36 fresh fighters joining the dozen already circling. 48 enemy aircraft. 1 tail gunner. 400 rounds. Whitmore broke the silence first. Suggestions? Donovan's voice was low, controlled, absolute. Permission to attack. Whitmore hesitated. Explain. They'll hit in a coordinated strike, Donovan said. If we let them finish forming, we're done. But if I fire now, while they're still organizing, I can break the formation before it exists. Then you'll have no ammo left. Better to burn it early than die with full cans. Whitmore took 3 long seconds, then answered. Do it. But if we die, I'm writing your family a strongly worded letter. Donovan didn't laugh. He was already swinging his turret. 48 fighters assembled ahead, like a living machine ready to crush them. Wings aligned. Vectors locked. A synchronized execution. Donovan opened fire. Not at planes, but at the gaps that held their formation together. He sprayed the connective tissue of the attack. 2 fighters collided, avoiding his tracers. Another erupted instantly, the explosion tearing the sky open. Panic tore across the grup as perfect choreography dissolved into blind chaos. Whitmore's voice cracked. Holy! He couldn't finish. No one could. 1 tail gunner had dismantled the largest Luftwaffe assault wave they had ever seen. But Donovan wasn't cheering. He had only seconds of ammunition left. And the Germans knew it. They regrouped in 90 seconds, angry, disorganized, and ready to overwhelm the bomber from pure rage. 12 sliced in from directly behind. Fast, merciless, and close enough that Donovan could see the pilot's goggles. Burst, burst, burst. He shredded the first fighter. The second peeled away, burning. The third limped off, trailing smoke. He fired again. 2 more exploded. Another spun out. But the gun belts ran dry mid-sweep. Click. Empty. I'm out, Donovan said quietly. Hell's fury creaked. The tail shook violently. Cannon fire raked the skin. A few rounds hit home, but none found a fatal line. The bomber still held altitude. The German formation regrouped for the kill run, 27 fighters remaining. Donovan had no ammunition, no defense. Nothing but 2 empty barrels and a steady gaze. The last wave moved in, tight, disciplined, lethal. 300 yards. 200. 100. Donovan kept the dead guns trained on the lead pilot, smoothly, deliberately, with perfect aim. The German froze. He didn't know the guns were empty. He couldn't know. A fraction of fear pulsed through him. He broke right, hard, instinct taking over. The entire formation shattered behind him. 12 fighters scattered in a panic, rolling away, aborting what should have been an execution. Sir, they're breaking off, the ball turret gunner yelled. And they were. They fled a gun that couldn't fire anymore. Fear did the shooting now. The Luftwaffe had seen enough. After losing 21 fighters to 1 tail gunner, they peeled away and vanished eastward, leaving Hell's Fury limping alone across hostile sky. No fighter dared approach the bomber again, not even when 3 more German patrols spotted them on the return leg. Radio intercepts buzzed. Avoid the tail of that B-17. It's cursed. At 16:47 hours, 9 hours after takeoff, the battered fortress touched down at Framlingham. Her left wheel protested. Hydraulics leaked. The rudder hung crooked. But she lived. Donovan climbed from the tail like a man stepping off a streetcar. Calm, unshaken, cigarette already between his fingers. While he sat cross-legged on the cold tarmac, Murphy, the crew chief, inspected the damage. 47 bullet holes. 13 cannon strikes. Metal peeled back like torn cloth. The tail gunner's compartment looked like it had been chewed by a machine. He checked the ammunition cans. Empty. Every belt spent. You used everything, Murphy said. Donovan exhaled a thin stream of smoke. Had to. Didn't have enough to waste. Captain Whitmore arrived next, his voice tight. How many did he get? Murphy read from a clipboard. 12 confirmed. For probables. 3 damaged. Whitmore stared at Donovan. 19 fighters. 1 tail gunner. For minutes. Donovan flicked away the cigarette. Should have made it 20. By sunset. The story swept through the entire 390th Bombardment Group. By morning, other bases sent men to hear it firsthand. By noon, staff cars from 8th Air Force headquarters were parked on the flight line. And by evening, Major General Frederick Anderson landed in person. He found Donovan in the barracks, cleaning soot from the barrels of his guns. Not for show, just habit. Soldiers clean weapons the same way boxers tape their hands. "I'm not here for a report," Anderson said. "I'm here to understand what you did." Donovan explained his philosophy in blunt, unpolished terms. Attack first, disrupt early, break coordination before it forms, turn fear into a weapon. He outlined the patterns he studied, the psychology he exploited, the timing he'd learned by instinct and necessity. Anderson listened without interrupting. Then he asked one question. "Can you teach this?" Donovan hesitated. "Not everyone's built for aggression. You need men who think like fighters. The ones who see opportunity instead of danger." Anderson nodded. "Find them. Train them. As of now, you're reassigned to 8th Air Force Training Command." Donovan shifted. "Sir, I'd rather stay with my crew." "Your crew doesn't need you anymore. Other crews are dying because their gunners don't know what you know. Which matters more, saving 9 men or saving 9,000? There was only one answer. And so the Donovan doctrine was born. Over the next month, Donovan built the most radical gunnery school the Air Force had ever seen. Not designed by officers, but by a man who'd lived inside the tail, who'd felt cannon shells scrape past his skull. He wrote 5 principles. 1. Seize initiative. Hit the enemy during formation. Don't react. Force them to react. 2. Psychological disruption. A single tracer across a formation can scatter 10 fighters. Fear does the killing. 3. Focus fire. Do not divide attention. Dominate one sector. Obliterate it. 4. Ammunition economy through aggression. Spend 10 rounds early to prevent 1,000 later. 5. Accept risk. Gunners take fire so the crew doesn't. 10 lives beat 1. Traditionalists called it reckless. Commanders called it wasteful. Instructors called it suicide. But the numbers didn't lie. 36 gunners entered Donovan's first class. They trained with live fire, simulated attacks, psychological conditioning. 30% washed out. Men who couldn't shift from defensive instinct to offensive mindset. The rest went to war. In their first 10 missions, they shot down 26 fighters. Not a single bomber in their units was lost. Tail gunner casualties across the 8th Air Force dropped from 38% to 23%. Mission loss rates plunged. German attack efficiency collapsed. Luftwaffe debriefs began warning pilots. Avoid American formations showing early tracer fire. Aggressive tail gunners present extreme risk. Recommend abandoning stern approaches entirely. The psychological war had reversed. By mid-1944, Donovan trained gunners accounted for 43% of all tail gunner kills in the European theater. They pioneered new techniques, tracer braiding, coordinated denial fire, ghost gun deception. And as the doctrine spread, the Luftwaffe's ability to attack bomber formations eroded. Historians later calculated that aggressive fire saved at least 300 bombers and more than 3,000 crewmen. All because one man chose not to wait for death. But Donovan himself? He never flew another combat mission after March 6, 1944. His war shifted from the tail guns to the training fields. When victory came, he went home to South Boston. No medals hung in his living room. No photos of Hell's Fury sat on his mantle. He worked construction, raised his kids, lived quietly. In 1965, a reporter tracked him down and asked about his legendary mission. Donovan shrugged. "I did what needed doing. So did every gunner who fought that day." In 1972, one of his students, Thomas Bailey, told the truth. Before Donovan, tail gunners survived by hiding. After Donovan, we survived by making the enemy afraid to come near us. In 1945, 8th Air Force studies revealed the impact. Bomber losses dropped 43%. Luftwaffe attack success fell by 63%. German manuals included chapters on how to avoid American tail gunners. Donovan never read those reports. He died in 1998 at age 76. The Boston Globe obituary was small, just a note that he had served as a tail gunner. It didn't mention 12 kills in 4 minutes, or the doctrine that saved thousands. At his funeral, only 17 people stood in the cold. Family, 2 old comrades. But the night before, in a quiet bar in South Boston, a handful of aging gunners raised their glasses. Bailey, cane in hand, spoke the last toast. Mike Donovan never cared about medals. But every man who walked off a bomber because the Germans backed away, they carry his legacy. Not 12 kills, 12,000 lives. The Donovan doctrine still lives in fighter tactics, naval aviation, helicopter gunnery, missile defense algorithms. Wherever defense must strike first, his fingerprints remain. March 6, 1944. 23,000 feet over Germany. One tail gunner. 12 fighters. For minutes. A moment that proved survival doesn't belong to the passive. It belongs to those who turn fear into a weapon, who refuse to die by someone else's rules. Those who go hunting first.